Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and places driving the sporting event and tourism industry forward. I'm your host, Carrie Shields, and today's episode is incredibly special in honor of the holiday week. Earlier this year at Playeasy, we launched something called the Playeasy Purpose Project, an initiative designed to highlight and celebrate the individuals and organizations in our community who are creating real lasting impact through their work. The Purpose Project was built around a belief that central to everything that we do, that sports and events have the power to change people, places, and communities, and that the work we do is incredibly important. And behind every tournament, every event, and every experience that brings people together, there are leaders and organizations whose purpose goes far beyond logistics. These are the people mentoring kids, strengthening communities, opening doors, and lifting others up. So, leading up to our conference last summer in July in Valley Forge, we asked our partners, all of our destination partners, to nominate organizations within their communities who they thought were worthy of a financial donation, as well as to amplify their voice and what it is they are doing to impact their communities. I was incredibly overwhelmed by just the feedback and nominations that we received. There's so much going on in the world, and I feel just there's been so much going on within our company this past year. I mean, our first conference and doing the restructure of our company and just continuing to grow our business, that this was something that really made me take a step back and realize why it is we do what we do and why we wake up in the morning and why we've continued to build what we have the last 8+ years. And so being able to spend time and hear these stories and meet these incredible people was incredibly humbling. And so from the nominations that we received from our destination partners, we chose 4 recipients that were selected as the first ever Playeasy Purpose Project honorees. We honored them at our conference this past year, and then in honor of the holidays, we thought it'd be great just to highlight some of their stories. And so in this episode, you'll hear from each of them, their missions, and the impact that they're making every single day in their communities. Their stories are powerful reminders of why this industry matters. It's an honor to share their voices and stories with you. Let's get into it. Welcome to Sports City, USA, Frisco, Texas. Ever wonder how a small town in North Texas became the epicenter of American sports? From the Dallas Cowboys to the PGA of America, Frisco is where champions train, fans gather, and unforgettable events come to life. In our new docuseries, Where Greatness Grows, hear the real story from the people who built it. City leaders, sports execs, and visionaries who turned Frisco into a powerhouse for tournaments and meetings. With world-class venues, championship fields, and top-tier hotels all in one place, Frisco is more than ready to host your next big event. Watch the story at sportscityusa.com.
You have so many of the professional leagues touching this community, whether it's Major League Soccer or the NFL or the PGA.
Failure was just not an option.
It's been really cool to build the business that we have here in Frisco.
It's one of those places where you want to be if you're into sports.
People are pointing here, and they're saying, I need to go there.
Our first Purpose Project recipient is Rochester Accessible Adventures, nominated by the incredible team at Visit Rochester, and it's easy to see why. Rochester Accessible Adventures has become a national leader in advancing inclusion in sports, recreation, and community experiences for people of all abilities. Through innovative programs, strong partnerships, and a commitment to systemic change, RAA works to remove barriers and create environments where everyone can participate fully. Under the leadership of Anita O'Brien, RAA has helped communities rethink what accessibility truly means, moving beyond accommodation to create spaces that are intentionally designed for independence, dignity, and belonging. Their work doesn't just expand access, it shifts mindsets and empowers organizations across the country to build more inclusive and welcoming opportunities for play. This mission also hits close to home for me. I have a 1-year-old goddaughter, my niece, Callie, our Callie girl, who has Down syndrome. And Seeing organizations like RAA creating a world where kids like her can play, explore, and belong without limits is incredibly meaningful. Since Callie was born, we've been welcomed into a community that we didn't know that we would be a part of, but it has been so special to have our eyes opened and brought in with welcome arms. And Anita was proof that there are people dedicating their life to making sure that all people have accessibility. And I just so enjoyed this conversation. Rochester Accessible Adventures embodies the heart of the Purpose Project, using sport as a powerful vehicle for connection, joy, and community transformation. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Anita, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Carrie. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Of course, yes. I am so excited. This is not a typical episode that we do, but your organization is one that I'm really excited to highlight. And so, could we start with your mission for those new to Rochester Accessible Adventures? How would you describe the heart of your organization and the impact you're working to make?
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for letting us be here and for being a recipient of your gifts to the community. So, our mission really addresses a need that we saw in the community, which was that there was not equitable access to the fun stuff. So, not equitable access to recreation, to sports, to all those things we do in our leisure time with the people that we want to be with. And to really understand why that gap exists, why there's not equitable access, it takes a systems approach. And what we decided to do was really hone in on that and um, focus on the impact of what it means to not have access to that. So if you don't have equitable access, you don't have access to physical benefits, social, emotional benefits, all those really exciting pieces that sports and recreation bring to everyone else. And so that means we need to focus on increasing positive health and wellness of people with disabilities to be able to um, receive those benefits in those spaces. So we focus on those spaces, and we decided that we would go into places that are providing recreation and leisure and sports and help them include people with disabilities. So from young kids all the way up to us older and aging, going through life kids, right? And so the idea that you may be born with a disability, you may acquire a disability, your body's going to change as you go, but you want to keep going. In order to do that, you have to change those spaces so that they're empowered to provide services that are inclusive of everyone. And so we built our model and our mission and our work around that vision of the fact that everybody should be able to play together with whoever they want, whenever they want, when any business is open for business.
That's incredible. And your team is leading powerful programs like the 524 Mile Accessibility Education Initiative along the Canalway. Can you share what inspired this vision and what kind of change you're seeing in this program and maybe describing a bit more about what it is and what it entails?
Yeah. So 524 is 524 miles of the Erie Canal, and how it now goes north up the Empire State Trail, and that goes across the state of New York, and that means it's in over 200 villages and towns and communities where people are living, and it became this space of conversation around, isn't that what we want? Like every kid in every hometown should be able to access recreation and sports. Well, our very first inclusion partner, the business that we chose to work with first, was a kayaking and cycling rental company on the Erie Canal, one little pinpoint in Fairport, New York. And we changed. We helped him transform his business so that every day that he's open, anyone can go there and use adaptive or standard equipment for both cycling and for kayaking. So that model is what we decided to replicate. And having this linear path that goes through so many, hundreds of communities is a great model for us to be able to influence more and more communities to make these kinds of transformative change. So that particular project became a state initiative to contract with us, with RAA, to be able to go into those spaces and start training businesses all the way across the state to have this kind of narrative. So now we have two things. We have hometown recreation access. So you find your closest pin mark on the canal, but then we have tourism. And so if maybe you participate in Fairport and you think, oh, I love kayaking now, where else could I go? You still need those things in place to go kayak in another town or another spot or another lake. And so we're going to those spaces now and transforming. So with this 2-year initiative so far, we will work with at least 24 entities, and some of those are municipalities, total villages that are going to be working on this narrative of how to make sure everything they do is done through a lens of inclusion. So we're seeing a lot of focus on canal-based activity, kayaking, cycling, birding, cross-country, snowshoeing in the winter, museums, just village approach, a lot of adaptive kayak launches going in on a lot of waterways. So you really can start talking about tourism and point A, point B destination travel, which is, it's what people like to do on their holidays or their weekends. So it's really exciting to see that initiative taking place.
That's incredible. And I think something our company has been in this industry for almost 8 years now. And there's so much more talk about accessibility and inclusion across the tourism space. And it's been so great to see that it's being brought up as a topic of conversation in ways that cities can transform and
Right.
become more accessible. And so you spoke a little bit about partnerships, and you were nominated by Visit Rochester for the Playeasy Purpose Project. Could you speak to what it has meant to have that kind of support from your local tourism partner, and what role does that play in accessibility?
Yeah, tremendous value for that particular industry to support something like this because it's enmeshed in their dialogue. So we might be bringing in more people to kayak on the canal in any of these spaces, but are they going to stay? Are they going to shop? Are they going to go to the restaurants? Are they going to do an overnight? We know the answer is yes, if things are in place. So these towns and villages and communities have one of two options: either create more access and more accessible experience, or the person's going to go on down the road to the next spot. So with an entity like Visit Rochester, who has uh, known us since our start 10 years ago, they've been seeing this narrative grow. We've had several social media influencers come into our region because of the things that are starting to happen. And those particular social media influencers are people with disabilities who are promoting accessible travel. And that's a powerful piece where you can get people to understand that the tourism industry is huge. The disposable income of people with disabilities in America is like $4.9 billion. So these communities have some money they could reach for and expect if they invest in this kind of accessible accommodations, accessible engagements for folks. So absolutely love that Visit Rochester got it from the beginning. Not only with this just general tourism, hey, what's in the Rochester region, what's in the Finger Lakes, these places that people tend to come to, and then taking a hard look at the barriers that are still in place and starting to ask those bigger questions of, what about our Airbnbs and our hotels and our restaurants? How can we support them to learn this kind of information and to also incentivize with funding streams for them to make some of those changes. So incredible to have uh, the head of that kind of conversation leaning into it and looking for ways to train the people that are in that industry. So we've really appreciated that. It also plays into sports, because when we have sports teams that have athletes with disabilities, and you're going to bring in 4 or 5 teams from across the Northeast, you start looking at the same things you do with everybody,
Yeah.
right? How many hotel rooms that have the accommodations that are needed? What kind of spaces would uh, appropriately hold 45, 60 athletes, many of whom might be in wheelchairs, for a dinner out? These kinds of questions get trickier if you haven't really taken a look at that space. So um, having Visit Rochester, they've compiled those lists, so it's a lot easier to be able to say, hey, we're bringing in this tournament, and they can put together the package for the tournament players. So yeah, it's definitely, I would encourage every community to start doing that, to start looking towards that kind of partnership.
And I can speak firsthand. The Visit Rochester team has been incredible to work with and are extremely passionate about the work that you're doing. And it's clear just by the good people that they are. But I think one thing I do want to touch on is the importance of community. I mentioned before we started recording that I now have a 1-year-old niece, my goddaughter, who has Down syndrome. And so I have seen firsthand the importance of community around the need for accessibility. And
Right.
so, how, from your perspective, how important is community when it comes to the initiatives and impact that you're making within the city of Rochester?
Yeah. Um, it's inc- I think it's important for people to realize that disability is just one of the things in life, and it's probably the one thing that can happen to all of us in in our life trajectory. We tend to not think about it until it becomes personal,
Mhm.
until you know somebody, or it affects somebody in your family, or it impacts you. And it is at that point that people start looking around and saying, well, where's everybody else that's going through this? Or, gosh, I didn't realize how important curb cuts were until it's really imperative that I have one right about now. And you start really noticing how the built world was built. And then you start also noticing societal attitudes and how value is or is not present around inclusion. And I, th- I know that when we get people on board to just have a value of inclusion, whether or not it is personal to you at that moment, the community is stronger. We have more people that are out engaging together. We see each other. We're more visible in the community, and that fosters conversation, and dialogue, and interest in helping each other create a better space. So I know that when a parent has a child born with a disability, that's like an immediate switch of, wow, I don't know anything about this, and I've got to dive into this world really quick so I can support my child. And then first thing you want is to Google something, you know, or to look around your community and say, now, where have I seen this being supported before? Where have I heard of this before? The communities that have a lot of things going on with disability inclusion, it it, it is easier for families in those communities. So the encouragement is that people don't wait until it's personal, but they invest in this these conversations, they invest when they see their park putting in a inclusive playground. They not only applaud, they go and learn and understand, and then they turn around and say, well, why isn't that playground
Yeah.
inclusive too? Like, couldn't we do that if we just did it there? Can't we? Those are allies, and we need the allies to be looking ahead and looking out on behalf of their future self or their future grandkid or, that
Yep.
kind of thing. So incredibly important for community to feel and act as allies.
And I think a great way to lead into this, you recently launched the Direct Connect Resource Hub. Um, could you speak to that? What was the goal behind this effort, and how are you seeing it help people discover accessible sports and activities?
Yeah, so that was my just quick attempt to say, oh my gosh, we have so much information now. We need to let people know. And it was getting really too hard to have enough flyers to give out to people because recognizing that we're 10 years old and we started with one partner. A lot of people think we're a kayaking and cycling company because of all the narrative that came out of that one and continues out of that first business partner. And I laugh at that, but yeah, we do fencing and birding and uh, tennis and pickleball and community rec and pools and schools and these uh, just a rich menu now of inclusive opportunities for sports and recreation. And what happens when you acquire the disability or a child is born with a disability is, yes, we are using the internet. It's one of the first things we search to try to understand what the new storyline is going to be for our child or for ourselves. And what we want to pop up on the search engine is active, engaged, healthy lifestyle as the expectation. So you have a traumatic brain injury. So your child is a child with Down syndrome. So you have had to have an amputation. It should pop up that here's what people are doing. They're rock climbing, they're hang
Yeah.
gliding, they're scuba diving. Okay, those are the extremes. But right down here on ground level, they're going birding with a community. They're fencing, they're playing soccer, they're playing basketball, like the stuff we're used to hearing. They're doing it how? They're doing it with adaptive equipment. The expectation is keep moving, keep living. So the Direct Connect Resource Guide is really that sense of not only what RAA has our fingers in, but also here's what else we know about the community. Here's where else you can find resources for hiking and camping in the outdoors across New York State with accessibility. Those kinds of things we're really trying to start populate that resource guide because every week I get referrals, I get inquiries from people who tell me their story in one line, motorcycle accident. I need something different now. Tell me what I can do. And the first stop is go to the resource guide, take a look, see what piques your interest. Let's talk more. Let's get you connected. Um, Knowing that there's not just one thing for you that you can do now because of your diagnosis is so important. It's important that a child hears from day one the same narrative we're telling everybody else. The same thing when they go through PE in K through 12. Here's your options out there. Find the one that fits you. Try them all. Pick the ones you like. For people with disabilities, that's not been the option, but now it's much more accessible and the narrative we're pushing is this is the expectation. You're
Yep.
6 years old. You're going to grow up to be a scuba diver, a rock climber, a mountain climber, like set those goals and then find somewhere between here and there the things that you really like. And that's what we're seeing. Youth are used to be in adaptive sports. You might see a youth when they were 14, 15, 16 years old. They might come out and start trying something. Or when they aged out of high school and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do now? Now we're seeing parents come with 1-year-olds and saying, well, I know they're too young, but I want to learn as a parent what I should be encouraging them, talking to them about, showing them. And yeah, go hang out in a rock climbing gym.
Yep.
Look up high, look at the adaptive equipment. Set that expectation as soon as it's appropriate to be on a wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an exciting part, and that's a piece that we're going to be developing out with much more tailored resources, video kinds of things that will accompany that teach people how to access them. So you're interested in rock climbing, so you're interested in birding. Here's your next steps to really help support the individual or maybe the parents that are trying to say, well, how do we do that? How do we get involved? But just to have those resources sitting right there.
And if anyone's listening and wants to access these resources, how would they be able to do so?
Yep, it's on our website at Rochester Accessible Adventures.org. And that particular resource guide is under one of our breakdowns there of I forget what it says. I don't have it in front of me, but when you scroll down, it says Direct Connect Resources Guide, and that opens up, what I hope feels like exciting set of adventures waiting to happen.
Awesome. We will be sure to share that so we know what it says. But to lead us off, so for other destinations listening, what's one piece of advice you would give on building a more inclusive, accessible spaces and experiences in their communities?
I think it's great to start with the question, kind of an internal one. Have you thought about people with disabilities in this space of recreation, sports, and tourism? Hopefully, yes is the answer. But if you haven't, start doing that. Start looking around your community, do a quick Google search on any organizations that provide services to people with disabilities. That's your go-to people that are already there in your community. Reach out, make the connections, ask the questions. What would you want? What are you already involved in? How can we help? And then have this expectation that people are moving, people are living in those spaces of recreation and sports and tourism, and each community can make some incredible changes that not only bring in new community members to live there because they make these changes, but also bring in tourists. They can become a host site for a lot of revenue generating experiences around the dynamic, particularly sports scenario that's there with sports athletes. So start. I think be open to this idea that people with disabilities are parts of families. It's rarely just one person. It's always everybody coming together. And however you look at it from, sometimes it is money that motivates, economic development that motivates. That's fine. It's huge. You're missing out if you're not engaged in this. So we encourage you to think of it that way. And there's a lot more focus on that from funders as well to be able to assist with that. So all around, it's a great opportunity to probably find a marketing niche you haven't been looking at before and open those doors wide open.
Awesome. Well, Anita, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and more about your organization. And I just want to sincerely thank you for all the work that you do. It's extremely impactful. And hopefully, this inspires even just one person to get more involved. So, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you again for your support of our organization.
Of course. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. Bye. Our second Purpose Project recipient is the Boys and Girls Clubs of Puerto Rico, nominated by Discover Puerto Rico, an organization whose impact reflects the very best of purpose-driven leadership in our industry. Serving more than 16,500 children and families across the island, BGCPR is dedicated to creating pathways for education, opportunity, and economic mobility. Their programs nurture academic success, personal growth, and community connection, giving young people the tools, confidence, and support they need to thrive. Under the leadership of CEO Alma Frontera, the organization delivered powerful moments of connection and celebration this year. From the Triple Play 2025 experience, captured in their dynamic recap and featured in national news coverage, to the high energy PSS Cheer and Rebel Athletic Showcase, which brought thousands of young athletes together in a safe, inspiring environment. These aren't just events, they're intentional platforms for belonging, mentorship, and joy. Boys and Girls Clubs of Puerto Rico embodies what the Purpose Project stands for, using sport as a catalyst for hope, community, and life, changing opportunity for young people across Puerto Rico. I loved this conversation with Alma. She brought such incredible energy, just like everyone that we've met from Discover Puerto Rico. And I'm very familiar with the Boys and Girls Club from being involved when I lived in Boston, and they just do incredible work across the country. And I hope you get something out of this. I think she's made such tremendous impact with her community, and it's true. It was truly easy to see the passion that she has to making a difference. And so I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Alma, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I am so excited for this conversation. You were brought to us by Discover Puerto Rico, which is uh, one of the great groups that we have the benefit of working with through Playeasy. And so just really excited to have you. And so to kick us off, for our listeners who may not be familiar with the Boys and Girls Club of Puerto Rico, can you tell us what is the role it plays in the community across the island?
So, Boys and Girls Clubs of Puerto Rico is part of the nationwide movement, which is Boys and Girls Clubs of America. In Puerto Rico, in particular, we're one of the largest organizations. So, we currently have more than 25 sites. We attend kids all the way from 0 to early Head Start, and then they go to our regular clubs when they're 6 years old, all the way to 18. But then we have a two-generational approach. So we also, we believe that to break the poverty cycle, you can't just work with the minor, you need to be able to work with the family. So we also attend adults all the way up to 60 years old.
Oh, that's incredible. And is that something specific to Puerto Rico as a whole, or is that across the nation with the Boys and Girls Club?
I would say every organization has a little bit of variance in it, but we're not the only ones that have this sort of combo. There are others as well. We just tend to be one of the largest organizations within the movement. But boys and girls really what it looks is to attend the community needs. So you'll see that each boys and girls sort of should be attending what that community really needs in particular, and that's the way we play it here as well.
That's awesome. And you are fairly new to this position, coming on last year after a very impressive career in the private sector. And so, what inspired you personally to make that shift? And what has it meant to you to step into this new role?
Um, I mean, first, I think it's any Puerto Rican will at some point mention the Hurricane Maria that happened almost 8 years ago to this point. And that just flipped a switch in me and said, I just woke up every day after that saying, personally, I just felt if I'm not doing something to help directly with the reconstruction of the island, I didn't know really what else everybody else should be doing. So I switched to the NGO sector. And then last year, the organization has been around for more than 58 years here in Puerto Rico. So it's one of the biggest NGOs in the island as well. And when the opportunity came about, it was a no-brainer for me. It took everything that I've been working and throughout my career in different sectors, just sort of put it all into one. So I was just very honored.
That's incredible. And you are managing one of the biggest Boys and Girls Clubs across the country with over, I believe, 16,000 children and adults that you are serving as well across 25 centers. What are the
Yes.
most important needs that you're addressing today?
And I'm actually proud to say that you have the correct numbers. We're about to update those to now it's going up to 19,000 kids and adults, family members per year. And we have around more than 530 employees or team members in our local movement. And it's just the work that we do every day, and it's all for the kids. We tell ourselves and everybody that works here, at the end, we wake up and we go to bed just thinking about how we can make their lives better. How can we ensure that they have a safe space? How can we ensure that they're exposed to all the opportunities that they deserve, and to ensure that their development is really just full of experiences and knowledge and opportunity to really help them develop to the youth and the future of the country that we want.
That's awesome. And I've been able to experience Boys and Girls Club firsthand when I was at university in Boston, which is a big organization there. And so we were able to spend some time volunteering as student athletes within the center. And I always loved just the opportunity to see firsthand, one, the great work that you guys do, but two, the kids. And you mentioned your passion for sports and education. Could you speak to why do you think it's so important for kids to be involved, not just in school, but also in events and extracurricular activities outside of school?
Yeah, so we actually work with three main pillars. So one, like you're saying, is education, it's economic development, and then there's social. So it's very key, like you're saying, that education will always be core, will always be centered. But we want to ensure that we provide them with exposure to arts and culture. And then definitely sports and recreation for us is such a key, because kids learn in many different ways, and not everything is in a book. And that doesn't necessarily always get to everybody, right? Because of our learning abilities and ways to learn just in general. So the fact that sports can come in being fun, and it's just a fun way to learn discipline, to learn teamwork, to learn life skills, soft skills, to just really prepare you for adulthood even. And sports even prepares you for it's part of workforce development. So and you have such a variety, right? Even just the fact that you can do individual sports, you can do team sports, and that doesn't mean that because you are doing, let's say you're playing golf, that you're not really gonna learn about teamwork or the fact that everything else, and the same vice versa. But we see the kids in the courts, we see them with their teachers and our leaders, and we see them, light up. And at the end, this is a career opportunity for many. This is the future. We're also trying to build, and for everybody, not just kids, by the way, I think this is not talked enough. The fact that you might not be a baseball player, but there's so many other career paths that are still involved with the sports. Let's say you loved baseball, right? So it's also exposing them to the fact that you don't necessarily need to only be the athlete. That it's not only the case. You can be so many other things, coach, producer, manager, people working at the venues, and all of this. So just making sure that they're introduced and know their options. And I don't know, sports is just a magical worldwide language for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I was lucky I had a great education, but there was no greater educator than playing every sport I had growing up, teaching just all of the intangibles that I needed in my professional career, which is why I am so passionate about the work that we do and the work that you're doing hands-on in the community. And so a big theme of our podcast and our work in general is around community and the importance of not just, how can the Boys and Girls Club help, but how can groups like Discover Puerto Rico impact these kids' lives? Could you speak to the importance of that within Puerto Rico?
Well, definitely volunteering and the work like what you did in Boston is is always needed. We have a formal volunteer program, so anybody that's interested in doing that can definitely go up to our website, www.bgcpr.org. And you were talking about needs, obviously, just the donation and philanthropy part, just for us to be able to continue doing the work that we do. And you don't have to live in Puerto Rico. We have a lot of families too, or anybody that's interested in coming over for a vacation, but they want to do a service trip. That's also a way to go about it as well, which Discover has always pushed. They've always been very open and provided options for those sort of parts in your group travel. And I think it's just in Discover Puerto Rico's case, it's just putting a spotlight in Puerto Rico, which is what they've been able to be very successful at. And it's understanding that we're a great destination for everything, for just to have fun, but also events and big conferences and sports and just in general. I mean, and we're not just only beaches and sun and piña colada, which is great. But you have so many different things to do and so many climate options here in a matter of just like you can be at the beach and suddenly in 20 minutes be at a mountain and then 20 minutes out and be at the rainforest, So I would just encourage everybody to make sure that Puerto Rico is on your list and that anywhere that you travel, really, if you can ensure to be able to give back to the community for you to go that extra step, then it should be part of.
And the team at Discover Puerto Rico is incredible. I know I mentioned before we hopped on here, I was able to spend a little bit more time with their broader team this summer, and you
Mhm.
could just feel the energy and me wanting not just the pina coladas, but to really
Mhm.
share an experience there, hopefully someday soon. But could you speak to maybe a success story or something that really stands out about the work that you do that can show, on the ground, the impact that your work is making?
Yeah, I mean, and I always talk about this first. A couple of things I always highlight is if we're not willing to make an investment in our youth now, then I'm not sure really what future are we talking about just as a nation in general. And that's one, and definitely how sports plays a role in that. Second of all is the fact that um, kids kids need a lot of things, but we make a big difference as well as far as adults and mentoring. The space that we provide ensures it being a safe space physically, but also mentally. And you'll find, unfortunately, the data says so few kids have a mentor in their lives or an adult that they feel they would go to or trust. um and we're happy to be that for them. We would hope that it wouldn't necessarily be us and that every household would feel as safe, but so I always highlight the fact and ask everybody, do you feel you have been that person for somebody? And if not, it's okay, but have it in your radar and try to be intentional about it. It could be a family member, somebody from the community, anybody, but know that that is a very big piece as well. And also so I guess that's just being intentionally part of their lives. And success stories, I can bring out a couple just very recent is um, it's not necessarily in sports, but in music, you'll find that, how Bad Bunny just ended his
Yes.
historic 31 shows residency in Puerto Rico, global spotlight. So his music producer, which is the one that is seen at the concert, playing bomba in the center with the long dreadlocks. So he is actually a club kid from Loiza.
Oh,
He's been super talented since forever. All of their like the leaders that worked with him, they're like, just beaming with pride, as we're all. He just went to the Grammys, so we were just super excited for that. We also have, there's endless stories, but I can say we have one participant that unfortunately she had to, because of bullying, she dropped out of high school, which we know is happening more and more often now. And this is her speaking. she tells you her story by saying, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't like life. She was not just going through a depression, but just in general, she felt there was nothing for her to do or give. And she was, going through such a difficult time, her family as well, obviously. And she was able to join one of our programs called Youth Build, which specifically works with high school kids that for whatever reason had to abandon school. She was able to get her GED. She now went and got herself a degree I think in general regarding beauty and spa. And she's now wanting to be an entrepreneur and open her own spot. And she tells her story saying, now I have purpose. Now I found myself. Now I wanted to go to school. I enjoyed learning. And you look at her mom and you see an adult, a parent that had struggled seeing her kid go through all of that and now saying, I have a new kid, right? And that's a reason why we wake up every day. And you get kids that are graduating and finding scholarships because of volunteers and partners and big collaborators that we have mentoring. Sometimes it's not just about the donation, but people that really are there mentoring the kids. So we have one that just started in one of the best art schools in New York, fully, like with a full scholarship. So, we have amazing stories like those. We have um, stories that definitely will break your heart as well, and just the fact that places like these exist are just critical.
I couldn't agree more. And the work you're doing is so special because sometimes people just need community and
Mhm.
a way of looking that, there are brighter things ahead. And I think it's just really incredible the work that you get to do. And so a lot of our listeners are destinations and groups working within their city. What recommendation would you give to get more involved with local organizations like yours?
Well, I think first off, our partnership was perfect. You guys just had this big opportunity into giving back through one of your events. Discover Puerto Rico were able to nominate us. So I encourage all of the DMOs to do the same when they get the opportunities. And because that would have been an opportunity that it would have not been available for us if not through Discover. So we're very appreciative to both of your organizations. And so just even small connections like those can sometimes have such a big impact. And I would say it's also being ambassadors and representatives, right? Like I feel I'm a huge ambassador for Discover and Puerto Rico in general. And I feel that it makes sense that they are also back to the community in general. So I would encourage everybody to do the same. And then when it comes to events, make sure that organizations like ours are part of the events. Like in our case, we have facilities. So like we have courts. So any event that can come our way, we would love to be a host. But let's say it's not, organizations don't necessarily have that all the time, but at least then make them part of the events. Connect to producers. Like we have the WBC coming in next year. MLB is a huge partner of BGCA nationwide. So how can community be part of that, right? So I think we sometimes think it would take a lot or that it might be super complicated, and it's not. And it's not. So even just opportunities for community organizations to have spaces so that their brand awareness grows and their reach grows. I can guarantee you they would be super appreciative for that.
Yeah. I love that. And that's a point I wasn't even thinking about was just the access to your facilities is just one small
Mhm.
way that you can start to partner with a lot of these tourism bureaus. And you had mentioned before we got on the call that you had a few athletes and a tour come through.
Mhm.
Could you speak to just that experience and what, for the kids within your organization to be able to see stars just, in their building, which I think is just really cool.
And you know what? I think that's a great also example of how it works sort of backwards. So Rebel Athlete is a big BGCA partner. Their founder has been part of the movement in mainland. So when they were thinking of doing their annual photo shoot, they had selected Puerto Rico, which it's big, it's their first time, so it's huge for us. And then they were able to reach out to us first, and then we connected them to the DMO. We were like, you need to ensure that you are talking to Discover Puerto Rico to help you out and just ensure that our destination is properly represented and that you can get to visit the best places and have the best experience. And we were able to, I think that's a great example of how they had their trip. It's a business trip. It's for their brand. They are publishing this catalog, but they did have one day where they ensure they have a program called Rebel Gives Back, that they would do something with the community. So what we did is, just like 3 days ago, we stopped at a local cheers team gym, and we took around 60 of our kids, and they performed live in front of everybody wearing Rebel. So they got a big uniform donation from them. So they were Rebel athletes for a day. And just kids were ecstatic. Particularly cheer and dance, have a great opportunity to continue to grow in Puerto Rico. So just for them to be able to really see cheer is a sport. I can get scholarships. This could be my future. And especially for the boys too, that they can also be part of that. And I mean, they were just a little bit starstruck. So there were a couple of elite cheerleaders coming in, including Gabby Butler. So obviously, just for the kids to have that opportunity and be featured in their social medias and all of that. A couple of them I don't think really knew how big and viral that's gonna go. So we're excited to show final results for them and live like a professional athlete for a couple of.
Oh, that's incredible. And I love that. I mean, those are just two great success stories of the importance of partnership and how
Mhm.
that came about. And so I think that's so important in what we do within our industry. And so thank you for sharing both of those. And so just to finish up, if anyone wants to learn more about your organization or get more involved, how would they do so?
Yes, I mean they can personally look me up, and I answer all of everybody that wants to help. I'll answer directly, but they can definitely go to www.bgcpr.org, and we are in all of our social medias. Handles tends to be the same, BGCPR. So please feel free to reach out. We'll ensure you to connect. And hey, sometimes we do get people that reach out and they want to do something in particular. It might not even end up being with our organization for whatever reason, but we make sure that the help gets to Puerto Rico. So we'll connect you with whomever is the best fit. But definitely just ensure that giving back to the community is part of your daily thought. And there's many ways to do it, from going very simple and that might not require that much of your time to bigger ideas that you might have.
Amazing. And it has been such a pleasure getting to know you more and your organization. And I just want to thank you for all of the work that you're doing. You're truly making a difference. And knowing the Discover Puerto Rico team, you guys are true champions of where you live. And I just think it's really special and reminds me of why I love my job so much, to be able to connect with people like you. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. Bye. The third Purpose Project recipient is P.U.N.T Pediatric Cancer Collaborative, nominated by the Buffalo Sports Commission, an organization whose mission embodies compassion, community, and unwavering support for families facing the unthinkable. P.U.N.T provides critical financial, emotional, and practical assistance to families navigating pediatric cancer. Their programs offer everything from hospital support and bereavement resources to direct financial relief, ensuring that no family has to face their hardest moments alone. Their work transforms fear into comfort, isolation into community, and despair into hope. Under the leadership of Gwen, Mysiak, P.U.N.T has expanded its reach and deepened its impact, partnering with hospitals, care teams, and communities to create meaningful support at every stage of a family's journey. Their commitment goes far beyond assistance. It's about dignity, stability, and bringing light into the darkest times. P.U.N.T represents the true spirit of the Purpose Project, using the power of community to lift others up, create meaningful connection, and bring strength and hope to families who need it most. We were also joined by James Adler of the Buffalo Sports Commission. He is the director of sports sales there, and he was the one who nominated this incredible organization for the work that he's done. He's just an incredible person, and his passion for the community that he lives in and represents was clear throughout this conversation. They both had me in tears and just reminded me of the incredible people out there doing really hard jobs for people who really need it. And so it was an honor and incredibly humbling to have this conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. James and Gwen, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast.
Thank you.
Hi, Carrie. Happy to be here.
Happy to be
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I know this is a very special episode for us. We are highlighting the organizations that were impacted through the Playeasy Purpose Project this year, and your organization is one that really stood out to us, Gwen. And so, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit about your organization's mission and the community that you serve?
Yes, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate the opportunity to share our mission, to thank James for all of his support of what we do. But we are the P.U.N.T Pediatric Cancer Collaborative. We are P.U.N.T because we do have pro athlete in our DNA. We were founded by the former longtime Buffalo Bills punter, Brian Moorman, but it's a public charity, so it's always been publicly supported. I've had the privilege of running P.U.N.T since 2012. Right on the heels of my own family's loss to pediatric cancer. Before that, I worked in media and broadcasting for our public broadcasting stations here in Western New York, and took a very hard and unexpected career change after my family went through worst case scenario of a terminal cancer diagnosis for my 13-year-old cousin. And, change the lens of pretty much everything and, the way you look at life. And I've just been so blessed to have a way to put that pain to purpose, in evolving P.U.N.T and, really helping, serve families in the fight here locally and all that it's evolved to be through the amazing teamwork of so many people in our community.
And I'm sorry for your loss, but I know just the work you're doing, how important it is. I know we talked a little bit before, but my family's also been impacted, and the importance of community during such a difficult time means so much to so many people. And so thank you for the work that you do. And James, you are a bit more involved outside of just working for Buffalo and bringing awareness to this great organization. Could you speak a bit about your role with the organization and what really stood out to you in the work that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first met Gwen, John, and the whole punt team back when I was in college at Canisius University. We did a micro tyco challenge where we were handed a dollar bill and we were told to fundraise as much money as we could for punt. And just through the project, it was a month-long project. We got to learn all about punt, the programs they offered, all the lives in Western New York they touch and families that help they're going through, unimaginable circumstances. And I just really, kept up with them on social media during college, loved everything they did. And I kind of realized when I got into the sports tourism world, all the local connections I was making and people I knew. And it almost just felt like, hey, I know all these people that could help out P.U.N.T. And it's an organization I'm passionate about. I've worked for, I've had coworkers whose family have been impacted by pediatric cancer. I had a distant relative who has been impacted by pediatric cancer. So it just seemed like a great fit to join their junior board at the time, now the P.U.N.T Ambassador Council. And, we plan charitable events for P.U.N.T. We volunteer at different events they do, for families of pediatric cancer warriors. And it's just, a fantastic opportunity to, serve families in Western New York, and also a great networking opportunity to be with young professionals like myself in the sports industry. And yeah, it's just a fantastic organization to be a part of, and I'm honored to be part of it.
You're both two very special people. How has that support from the community further your goals or make an impact recently?
Well, we always say, I mean, public charities are bonds of trust. We are, as, an organization, the conduit between the community, generosity and support and the families that need us and that we serve. And so, I mean, community support is the rocket fuel that makes this mission go. We take that responsibility as stewards of public resources very seriously. Again, both myself, our assistant director, lost his little boy to cancer. So, we being faithful stewards of these resources that are entrusted to us is an honor, and it's a privilege, and it's something that we do not take lightly. And so we were really proud to be, part of this equation, but we're kind of just the bridge in the middle, between people like James who get to work and fundraise, for us, and then the families that receive, our very impactful assistance. And we are very, very front lines with the population we serve. We're not sitting in an office going over for check presentations. We know these families, they text us, we walk the journey with them right from the beginning. And so it's a passion here, and we always say good souls find one another, and I feel like we have so much purity of heart within our organization because we're all the real deal, from the people doing the work to the families we serve and all the people that help us bring our mission to life.
That's amazing. And all of the work that you're doing is important, but could you guys both share a specific moment or a success story that really shows the difference your work is making on the ground?
So I think for me personally, I just want to preface this with, I can't, the work that Punt does and, the things I do, and for them, it's just, I'm able to make connections, and, the work they're dealing with the families on the front line. And, it really takes a special type of person. It's, I don't know if I could handle being on those front lines, and, I'm proud to make connections. But I just want to say, I feel like the work I do is very small compared to what they're doing on the day to day. But I would say a big success story for me personally within Punt is I had this idea coming out of college. I was an athlete. I played hockey, lacrosse, golf, recreational soccer. But my big thing was, I wanted to exercise. I loved to rollerblade, but I hated to run. But all my friends were doing 5Ks, half marathons, fun runs. And I'm like, I'd love to participate in that, but like, I just want to be on rollerblades. And I remember I had this idea of like, hey, what if we went to the local park? We did a rollerblading event where people could show up, you could walk, you could roll. It was just for fun, and it benefited the local organization. And when I started with the sports commission, I started meeting different hotel partners, different connections within the city, parks and recreation. And I reached out to Gwen on a cold call email. I was like, hey, I've got this, crazy idea. I think it could be a hit, for Punt. And, they took it and ran with it. And they had an annual walk event they did during COVID virtually. And they decided to marry it to the rollerblading idea. So every year we do the P.U.N.T Pediatric Cancer Collaborative walk and roll at Delaware Park. And I think about 200 to 250 people a year come out, local businesses, families with their pediatric cancer warriors, families who have unfortunately lost the fight to pediatric cancer in remembrance. And it's just a super fun day. People come, they walk their mile, they roll their mile on their rollerblades. We've got food trucks there. All the Buffalo sports mascots come out. There's the DJ, and it's just awesome to see. For me personally, just these families who are dealing with, the unimaginable, a child with cancer, just to be able to come out for one day, get an ice cream cone, have a smile on their face, give Sabretooth or Billy Buffalo a high five. And for me, that's kind of like been like my biggest win just in my professional career, I mean, getting the big sports tourism events are great, but to give someone a smile or just, an hour of peace of mind that they're in a safe space to participate, it's just, transcends everything for me.
That's amazing. And Gwen, how about you?
Well, we have had a lot of kind of monumental evolution of our organization over this past year. And so a big part of like what we characterize as the soul of our organization, which I know is really kind of hard to talk about, but it's important because it's a big part of who we are, is we do provide bereavement support. So, in the wake of a loss, we continue to walk beside families. On the pediatric cancer side, it's been since 2013 that our organization has made that commitment, and seeing the power of that support, and really the lifeline that it's been to our families struggling with loss, in that realm, we have just evolved our organization enough that we have been able to open our region's first peer support family grief center to any origin of loss. And, it's really, people like James that helped us build our organization, both in awareness and, stature and, fundraising, that gave us the solid ground we needed to take a step out in, that monumental of a way. And that side of our organization now is really, delivering transformational impact to people that have been really suffering on kind of islands of, despair from grief and loss and life altering situations. And so, recently that just comes to mind because it really is kind of a manifestation of, again, the support that we have around our organization, that we were able to do something and provide. There's over 200 peer support grief centers throughout our country, but Western New York did not have one until April, when P.U.N.T Pediatric Cancer Collaborative, met this really important community need. So, on the pediatric cancer side, I mean, there's so many, we just get this privilege every day of seeing the difference that the support that is provided to us makes. Probably the biggest thing that we do is bill paying for families. And, that's something that hospitals can't do because of federal laws that, prevent them from delivering direct financial assistance to families. But we get requests every day from social workers. I just signed about 15 checks this morning for families. We take care of that bill directly. So, we're paying the utility company, we're paying the landlord, we're paying the mortgage company, and we are averaging $20,000 a month of bill paying for families, just taking one less thing, off their plate that they have to worry about. The financial burden of a pediatric cancer diagnosis is really crippling and very stressful for families. So, we had a situation where we had a pediatric cancer warrior whose, father, his company was on strike, and, the income was lost, and the mom had stopped working because she was supporting, their child through their battle. And they went to no income, and, know that we were able to help, them make some very, very critical mortgage payments on their home. And, so again, we kind of get the privilege each day of knowing that we really are, providing that financial safety net to families going through, unthinkable circumstances. So we're grateful to be able to heed the call, because of the support we receive.
Gosh, and
You know,
what a light
very
you guys are. Yeah, no, no. I mean, it's all so important. And anyone, I mean, childhood cancer has touched way too many people and too many people's families. And so to provide any assistance during a time that is life altering in many ways is just so impactful. And so you can speak as long as you'd like to, because it's everything you're doing is so so important. And a lot of our listeners to our podcast are destinations. And so, James, from your perspective, how can other destinations intentionally weave community compassion into the foundation of their tourism and event strategies? I know that's a
Absolutely.
hard hitting question, but
No, I
love
mean,
it.
I think it's just, find something that you're passionate about and, look in your community for organizations like P.U.N.T, for your children's hospital, or if there's something, if you're a community that's big on adaptive sports, or, helping out other underserved groups. I mean, find those organizations, and, it may not be heads and beds and room nights, but just the social impact it has. I mean, you're helping out a cause first and foremost, but just, I mean, selfishly, the connections I've received through P.U.N.T, number one, the cause is, for the pediatric cancer warriors. But, after all that, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I now have contacts with the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, the people I've been able to meet through P.U.N.T at different events and things. It's just opened up, leaps and bounds. And I know working with Gwen before too, we've helped them with support with getting hotel rooms for people coming in to visit for events. They had their whole bereavement meeting in Western New York, and that was able to bring in a large group that all stayed overnight. So there is a tie into tourism. You know, you can do fundraising events that are surrounded by sports. I know, like a prime example of Playeasy, we were able to help out P.U.N.T. You know, the walk and roll, we bring some people in, and it's an event to add to the itinerary for people. Hey, and you can come check out Buffalo's one of our premier parks this weekend and help support a good cause. And or hey, you know, P.U.N.T's got this event going on, and you know, all the Bills players are supporting it. And, you know, there might be a Bills player there, and you know, it's really just kind of reaching out in your community, find something you're passionate about, find something you've been impacted by, or, you know, use the power of the connections that you have in order to make that difference for an organization that may not have that voice that you may have.
That's amazing. And I think, our jobs are, it gives a unique opportunity to really engage community and not just, as you said, heads and beds, but really engaging in ways that are purposeful and meaningful outside of just bringing events to your city. And so, for anyone listening or reading who wants to get more involved, how can they support your mission, Gwen?
Yeah, well, we have websites for both our pediatric cancer programs and our new family grief center. Both of our sides of the house, if you will, are very volunteer driven, which, is an important aspect of what we do. And again, the support that we deliver, it's all direct, it's local, it's impactful. And so whether it's time or treasure, again, I will say that, this is a public charity and the public is an indispensable dimension of making sure that we can deliver our mission. Um, yeah, and I just also want to say, again, James, I've been so proud of like the proud big sister, but watching you go from eager college student with, again, such, I knew the potential you had and how much you were feeling our mission and, to see you evolve in your career all these years and to kind of, you taking the organization with you, as your role has grown. Now I know you're about to be a husband in a couple weeks, so it's been really, like I said, I just want to thank you publicly, for putting all that you are into what we do here at P.U.N.T Pediatric Cancer Collaborative.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, Gwen. It means the world coming from someone like you. I've always looked to as a mentor, and you know, sometimes when I'm having a rough day, I think about the work that you all do, and you know, it's just I realize my issues aren't as big as I thought, and you know, it means the world to hear that coming from you, and you know, it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of the P.U.N.T family, and you know, I never want to leave.
Oh, well, you're not going anywhere. We're so lucky to have you. Thank you.
You guys are making me cry over here. No, uh,
Crying
no,
releases
I mean,
hormones, Carrie. We teach that at the grief center. You go ahead and cry. It's very healthy to cry.
Oh, Carrie, believe me, the P.U.N.T crew. I mean, you'll cry together, but they'll take you out to happy hour afterwards. You know, there's no problem.
yeah,
It's a good crew
yeah.
to be.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys both so much for being here and all the incredible work that you do. It's clear that you have a great passion for the work that you're doing, and we are so grateful to play a very, very small part and hope to continue to support both of you in your mission. So thank you again.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. Bye. Our fourth Purpose Project recipient is the Monco Anti-Hunger Network, nominated by Valley Forge Sports, our host at this year's conference. They're an organization whose work strengthens an entire community through dignity, compassion, and access to essential resources. The Monco Anti-Hunger Network plays a critical role in supporting food security across Montgomery County. Through coordinated partnerships, emergency food programs, community education, and innovative distribution models, they ensure that individuals and families have reliable access to nutritious meals. Their work doesn't just meet immediate needs, it builds long-term stability, resilience, and equity within the community. Guided by the leadership of Shannon Isaacs, the organization has expanded collaboration across local agencies, volunteers, and service providers, creating a more connected and efficient system of support. Shannon's dedication and vision have strengthened the network's ability to reach more people, respond to growing needs, and uplift the community through both service and advocacy. The Monco Anti-Hunger Network exemplifies the heart of the Playeasy Purpose Project, mobilizing community, meeting people where they are, and turning care into action to ensure no one is left behind. Shannon was one of the most impressive people I've talked to. She's not technically in the sports world, but her background in making an impact within communities, both nationally and within the Montgomery County Valley Forge community, was just incredible. I loved this conversation. I'm also from the Valley Forge area, and before they were nominated, I did not know that they existed. And so I just thought it was a really cool opportunity to connect closer with my home community and see the incredible work they were doing and being a very, very small part of what they're doing to make their community better. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Shannon, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast. To start, could you give a little bit more of your background and your mission of your organization?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the executive director at Montgomery Hunger Network. We're a coalition of close to 80 food pantries, food banks, and free meal providers, and we do innovation work on food insecurity. We provide emergency food. We move it around the county with large refrigerated trucks, and we also do collaboration work, really showing like how when the community comes together, we're able to do so much more together than we can do alone. And my background's, I've been a nonprofit executive for close to a decade. I've worked internationally on anti-poverty and food security related things and domestically. And yeah, it's a privilege to be at this exciting organization.
Impressive resumes that we've seen and just in the work that you've done internationally. So you bring a global perspective from your experience on Capitol Hill, the UN, and international food security efforts. How does that shape the way you approach local hunger relief here in Montgomery County?
Well, I would say I think is benchmarking. I think there's so many brilliant anti-poverty ideas, at the UN and in international spaces because there's so many different ways of tackling this issue. I was just at a UN conference where they talked about in Jordan. In Jordan, they have a system where they track who's the most vulnerable people in their societies, and then when there are shocks or there are difficulties, they make sure that they're extending special help to them. And it just seemed like such a brilliant idea, which is a little bit different than how we do it in the United States. So I think that sort of like looking at poverty from a multidimensional point of view, the intersections of food insecurity and hunger, and housing and access to education, I think is really informed by that. I guess I'd also say that I've seen what it looks like without the food security net. Like there's a safety net in this country, and I've seen what it looks like where there isn't a safety net, and we're incredibly lucky to be in a country where we have a safety net.
This is not a typical interview for us. We are typically interviewing some sports organizations and organizers within the Sporting Event and Tourism Network. But I think one of my favorite parts of my job is being able to see
Yeah.
all the good that community can do. And so we were connected to you by Valley Forge Sports, who nominated you as a Playeasy Purpose Project recipient. So could you talk about the importance of partnership and community within your organization?
Absolutely. So I think in so many ways, food insecurity is about community. It's about our neighbors. It's about taking care of each other. And we're all about collaboration. So we're very much an organization about like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What we can do together, we can do what we can do together. What's amazing about this organization is so exponentially bigger than what any one organization can do alone. I see this. We have regional coalitions of food pantries and food security organizations, and when they meet, the access to food just goes up exponentially. People have ways to help each other. People have ways share resources and new ideas and innovative practices, and it's just amazing how much collaboration really drives food security in a very large way.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You have doubled the amount of food provided through your organization. Could you speak to what that growth means for the families and people that you serve?
Yeah, we've almost doubled to we're very close to 1 million pounds of food this year. We may hit that. We're not sure yet, but we're going to be very close if we don't hit that. Uh, I think it's the stability that comes from consistent access to food. It impacts health. It impacts well-being. I think it just really brings joy and brings stability. Having enough to eat is just it's foundational. If you wanna plan your life, if you wanna be a kid and do your best in school, if you wanna be an adult and do your best at work, you really need access to food, and we're helping people live more stable lives and um, do it in a way that is healthy.
We work with cities across the country that are doing good within their community and doing their best to partner with organizations like yours to help you grow. Do you have any advice for these cities on how they can better partner with organizations like yours to help grow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think supporting collaboration initiatives is key. Unrestricted financial support is incredibly helpful. Donating food is incredibly helpful. I think that cities can play a transformative difference also in raising awareness about food insecurity. I think it can be so hidden in our society. Like where I live, it's probably close to 1 in 8 people in Montgomery County rely on the food safety net system, and it can be really invisible. I think a lot of people don't know about it. So I think bringing visibility and resources just makes a transformative difference. And those resources can be paired with I think pairing food with other resources around housing and pairing food with other resources around uh, learning and lifelong learning and job readiness skills. I think it's just one of the many ways to uplift our neighbors.
It was shocking. I am from the Montgomery County area, and that number was shocking to me as I learned more about your organization. How how do you go about educating your community on just the need for food in areas that people may have no idea about those kind of statistics?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of just like honest conversations. People don't realize it's like the kids in their kids' school. People don't realize it's their coworkers. It's food insecurity is everywhere. I think just talking about it and it's really systemically baked into the way our society works right now. So having ways that we can help our neighbors just, it's a really exciting issue also because the ability to make transformative change. Anyone can make a huge difference in food insecurity. Anyone can give food to their local food pantry. Anyone can give $1 that then gets turned into a meal. Like it's just like such a huge impact that anyone can make.
Especially as we get into holiday season and this area, it's getting very cold. And with things like SNAP benefits and facing challenges on that front, how or what do you see as the most effective way for local communities to create change in food security?
So I think getting involved at your local food security organization it just makes a tremendous difference, whether that's going to volunteer, whether that's I think calling and asking what they need, because sometimes they're out of eggs, sometimes they're out of milk, seeing what people need and then donating that or making a financial donation. I think there's so many different ways to get involved, and there's certainly a lot of need around the holidays, and it's just really a great way to be connected to the community.
I know I mentioned we're all across the country, so it's going to be different in different cities. But is there a way to find resources within your local community outside of just Montgomery County?
Absolutely. So I honestly, a Google search to what is the closest food pantry near me probably will, or the closest food bank or food pantry near me probably would help. You'd probably be able to find someone probably very close. I think many communities, in Montgomery County, there's close to 80. That's a lot of organizations, and I think that's pretty common across the country that there's a huge number of organizations working on this issue. So I'd suggest Google. Sometimes Feeding America has some resources. That's a national organization on food security that you can also look up local food resources through that too.
Awesome. And could you share a moment or maybe a story that really shows the difference that your organization is making on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have innovation prototypes where we test new gutsy ideas that are a little bit outside of the box, that could be scaled to lots of organizations, that lots of organizations could learn from. And this is, this is a collaboration. So this is Ardmore Food Pantry. And they had a program where at their food pantry, they offered wraparound services once a week. So this includes voter registration, access to healthcare, access to mental health care, access to all kinds of professional resources, just like all these different services all in one spot. But the keystone piece of it was an art class. And people said it was the one moment of peace in my week when they would go and be able to know they have their food taken care of, know everything's taken care of, and then have some art, make some art. And so then once a quarter, they were doing art openings at their food pantry, and the donors were there, the community was there, the food pantry guests were there, and the art, there was live music, there were flowers, and it was just this profound statement about equality and connection and this feeling, this sense of community. And I think it's really about us being connected with each other. And I think it's things like this, that activities that bring the whole community into the food pantry, I think is not the normal use of a food pantry, but I think it destigmatizes the food pantry and creates a space that's uplifting for all. At the end of the art opening, you had the same feeling of uplift as if you went to an art opening at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And how great to get that from a food pantry.
But I don't know if you knew this, but a key theme of our podcast is around innovation. And so I wasn't expecting a story on that, but I mean, how incredible. And we talk all the time, a common theme with sports and events is the sense of community and feeling of belonging and an escape that having that sense provides. And so that is just awesome to hear. And I hope that a city, even if one could just hear an idea like that and implement that within their community, I think could make such a difference. So that is awesome, Shen. And so to wrap up, for our listeners, how can they support your work, whether that be in Montgomery County or just inspired by your mission? And what's the best way to get involved?
So I mean, I think there are many different ways to get involved. I think right now, posting on social media about information about food insecurity is incredibly impactful. Talking to your neighbors, talking to your community members about food insecurity, so it becomes less stigmatized. So people know about it. Of course, giving money is incredibly helpful to us, Montgomery Hunger Network, but also to your local food pantry. Also, giving food is incredibly helpful. But I think there's no bad way to engage, and every little piece makes a huge difference.
Awesome. Well, Shen, thank you so much for being here. The world is a better place because of people like you in it. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I am very excited to share more about your organization to our network.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Till next time. Bye.